being here, and please pass along our appreciation to Dee. Auburn is an important part of our newspaper family. We have supported each other over many years. Been through this program, us through our Journalism Foundation. We're partners in they were partners with us in starting the APA Winter Conventions and recording the association's history, and we remain partners through the Hall of Honor each year. As previously said, this is the Press Association's 48th Hall of Honor ceremony on the Auburn campus. We're here in the Hall of Honor room, which is a reading room for the library, and you can see the plaques of those previously inducted to the hall on the walls that represent many of the newspapers from across the state. I want to thank Bonnie McElwain, Dean of the Auburn Libraries, for her hospitality as I host each year. The Dean has always taken extra care to make us feel welcome here, so thank you, Dean McElwain. As also previously stated, we also want to remember late Tex Williams, former publications editor for Auburn University's Relations Officer, who passed away last month. Tex was a big part of the Hall of Honor for many years, and I know many of our better newspaper men and women remember Tex and his warm personality. The Alabama Press Association Board of Directors established the Hall of Honor in 1959 to recognize those that made important contributions not only to their newspapers but also to their communities. And a list of the men and women previously inducted into the Hall of Honor is printed in your program. This is truly a list of who's who among Alabama journalists, and their legacy still motivates and inspires journalists today. I also want to talk to Jim Cox. He couldn't be with us today, but he serves as chairman of the APA's Hall of Honor Committee. I also want to thank the Auburn journalism faculty. They've meant so much to journalism through the years, and they have an excellent faculty. Ed Williams, who is in his 28th year at Auburn. I worked with him 29 years ago, I guess. Ed hired me back in about 1982. So he's also a friend. He's a friend of APA, a friend of newspapers, a friend of our state. And so many years he's guided some of the students working through the Auburn Plainsman. He's a strong advocate for teaching practical journalism in the classroom. Even today, when I have questions that I have a hard time solving, I'll pick up the phone and call Ed or attempt to email him. I'm about to get that down in here. Other faculty members here today include Jennifer Adams, Judy Shepard, John Carvalho, and the newest member of the faculty, Michael Fullhage. Nan Fairley could not be with us today. This faculty of teachers, their experience, most of them have worked at newspapers, which is really important. So the students leave the program ready to go to work and real prepared for the challenge that faces most journalists. Today we're here to honor three very special members of our newspaper family. Carl Elbass Jr. of the Graphic in Tuscaloosa, and Ben and Libby George of the Demopolis Times. As our inductees demonstrated through their careers in journalism, it's hard work, but it's a labor of love, and it offers a unique opportunity to make a difference in our world. These individuals dedicated their lives to their communities through their newspaper, and not only surprisingly through countless hours of community service as well. Whether through public service or as their role as a town crier, they made many contributions far beyond their years, and their memories are very much alive in the hearts and families and in our industry today. Their work was hard and, like a lot of journalists today, often unappreciated. It was a tough job, but rewarding in a special way. Most often understood only within the newspaper family. I'll tell you about the inductees one at a time and ask a family member to respond to remarks. First, Carl Elbass. Carl was born and raised in Tuscaloosa, and his newspaper began when he was 17 years old working in the mailroom of the Tuscaloosa News. He earned a degree in commerce from the University of Alabama and continued his work at the Tuscaloosa News for a year before joining the Air Force in 1941. He served in World War II as an intelligence officer for a fighter squadron based in England. He returned to Tuscaloosa and the Tuscaloosa News in 1945, resuming his newspaper career, this time as an editorial writer. He worked at the Press Register in Mobile, the Wall Street Journal, and South Magazine before he and his wife Camille started the Graphic, a weekly newspaper in Tuscaloosa. And Camille's no stranger to journalism, having taught journalists at the University of Alabama for many years, including me. The Elbashes published the Graphic for the next 22 years until it was sold to the Tuscaloosa News. And it was one of the first offset weekly newspapers in the state of Alabama when it made that transition in 1957. Carl was recognized over the years for his hard-hitting editorials, especially during the civil rights movements of the 1960s. He served as president of the Alabama Press Association in 1971. He was involved in community affairs through the Exchange Club, through the Christ Episcopal Church, and was also an active member of the Republican Party and was elected as a Ronald Reagan delegate at the 1984 Republican National Convention. One of the things about Carl Elbash that wanted me, and I was one that nominated him, was in addition to being a good journalist, he was my uncle and was my godfather. He set a great example of how journalism in general and community journalism in particular should be handled. It's kind of ironic that when he and my aunt Camille here ran the Graphic, I was probably the only family member that never worked at the Graphic, and I'm the only one that ended up in journalism. Yeah, that might be the reason. The closest thing I did for working at the Graphic was selling lineups for football games. But I always made it a point to send Uncle Carl a subscription to my newspaper and ask him his advice and critique. It wasn't always nice, but it was always helpful. So, speaking for the Elbash family is my aunt.
Thank you, Joe. I'm gratified to hear good words from you after all this. I hate to warn you, but I'm used to talking in 50-minute segments after. So you have my permission to leave right now. And I'd like to thank all of you for this great honor from our unruly family that you've seen running up down the elevator and everywhere since you've been here today. We all really appreciate this honor. And it's really a special thrill to get it at the same time as being at Little George. I can remember the old ATA meeting, especially in the summertime. We would go after the banquet somewhere in a hotel or wherever we were, and we would sing and have a wonderful time. I remember Ben's wonderful tenor, and he would harmonize while the rest of us sang in the key of C. We didn't know the difference at that time. And you know we were having fun when you start singing hymns at 2 a.m. Well, just like most of you in this room, Carl had ink in his veins, and I promise you, newspaper was his little lifeblood. And except for those years in the old Army Air Corps, I want to say not Air Force, it was the old Army Air Corps, mostly in England, he was in the newspaper business. And I can imagine that when he went and he saw more changes through his lifetime